Hey everyone, welcome back to the Athlete Mobility Blueprint. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to balance your mobility training with your other training, because I've noticed that this topic and this question has been coming up a lot. Okay, so first of all, I just want to introduce to you guys two concepts. One is minimum effective dose. So this is basically the minimum amount of training that you need to do in order to see improvement. So as we all know, if something doesn't challenge us, then it's not going to change us. So if we squat with an empty bar our whole life, we're not going to get stronger. The second concept is maximum recoverable volume. Now this is the most amount of training we can do and still recover and see improvements. Now in between these two is where we want to be. This is where we're going to make our gains. If we're below the minimum effective dose, we're going to be undertrained. If we're above our maximum recoverable volume, we're going to be overtrained. Now, these things can change, they can be improved. As we get fitter, our minimum effective dose increases. So when we first start training, or if we're untrained, going to the gym and doing even like say one AMRAP of say back squats at, well, depends on how strong you are. Even just one set, you might actually start getting stronger from that. Now, as you get stronger and fitter, your body is going to adapt, also known as accommodation, and the amount of exercise or the amount of volume that you need to do to improve is going to increase. Now, we can also increase our maximum recoverable volume. And this is going to be influenced by a lot of different things. So sleep is a huge one. If we're not sleeping enough, we're not going to be able to recover. So the training volume we can do and still improve is going to be less. Same with nutrition. If we're not eating enough, or conversely, if we're overeating, or if we're not eating the right macronutrients, etc., our maximum recoverable volume is going to go down. Now, another thing that influences our MRV is our mobility. The better mobility we have, actually the more volume we can train. The reason for that is mobility gives our body more options. So if we're super tight and our joints can't really move, don't have much range of motion, we're going to be limited by the exercises that we can do, and the tissues that we're training, it's going to be the same tissues over and over, because that's the small area that our body can work. And those tissues are going to become overloaded, and that can lead to injury, or it can just lead to plateaus or even getting weaker over time. Whereas if we have better mobility, we're going to be less injury prone, and we have more tissues surrounding our joints and more options of movement. So that means we can train more. Okay, now at the bottom here I have this graph, sort of related to this diagram here. And this is sort of what happens when we train. So we've got exercise here, and over the next, say, 24 hours, 48 hours, we're actually going to be less fit. I should have written the axes on here. One sec. Okay, so this is fitness. And the bottom is time. Okay, so we exercise. We actually get less fit in the immediate aftermath. However, then we recover and we supercompensate. Once we've reached that supercompensation, that's when we want to train again. So we're going to go back down, and we're going to recover, and then once again, we're going to super compensate. I'm also just going to write down gains here. In between these two, that's where we make our gains. Okay, this can't happen forever. We can't just add, say, 5 pounds every week, and we're just going to keep it getting better and better and better. We need to have what we call training cycles. So at the start of a training cycle, we might be working more closer to our minimum effective dose. So training is not too intense. Then over the space of typically, let's say 3 weeks, we increase the intensity to somewhere close to our maximum recoverable volume. And then we drop it back down, back to somewhere over here. However, we're fitter than we were before, so we can start a little bit higher than what we were before. If we're over here all the time, it's actually going to be counterproductive, and our maximum recoverable volume is actually going to get worse and worse. Now, I told you before, we can't let's take the squat again, for example. We can't just do the same type of squat all the time and expect to improve indefinitely. We actually need to vary our squats. So we might do back squats, we can do front squats, we can do box squats, we can do tempo, we can vary our stance, we can do narrow or wide. That's because, again, the tissue that's being worked. If we do the same stance, same type of squat every single time, then we're going to plateau sooner and possibly get injured sooner. Whereas if we're varying these things, we can actually super compensate better and for longer. And say, for example, we vary things over a period of 6 weeks, then we can go back to what we did 6 weeks ago. And it's going to have a better impact because we haven't done it for so long. All right, so let me just go back to the original question, how to balance mobility training and working out, and just introduce the idea of internal versus external training. So I'm going to call basically mobility training as internal training and other types of working out as external training. Like I said in a previous video, this internal training, this mobility, this has got to be the foundation. If we don't have enough of this, we won't be able to do this. Now, let's come back down here for a second and talk about our training cycles. Let's say, for example, we're at the start of a cycle. We're working near our minimum effective dose to begin with in terms of our working out. This could be a great time to add in extra mobility training so that our body becomes more resilient, less injury prone. Now, as we get close to as we progress through the cycle, say we get to week 2, week 3, perhaps our volume of internal training can temporarily take a dip because we've worked on it. And we can really focus on our working out or our performance so we can get really close to our maximum recoverable volume. Then we'll go back to the beginning and we'll take a deload and we'll start back here. And again, we'll add in more mobility training and less actual working out, and so on and so forth. So, guys, I hope that kind of helps answer this question. I wish I could give you a simpler answer, but the thing is, it really depends on the individual. It depends on your goals. Just to give you another scenario, if you're injured, you basically need to stop working out, stop the external training, and really focus on the internal and mobility training. If you never improve that, then it's like trying to build a house without a foundation. It's just not going to work. The bigger and better and stronger your foundation, the better your mobility training. The more of this your body can tolerate, and the more your MRV will be, and the more gains you can make. So you need to assess yourself, and I'm helping you do that in this program, but I'm also hopefully teaching you guys how to assess yourself and see, is your mobility where it needs to be? If so, we still need to keep maintaining it and improving it, but we won't need to put quite as much time into it as someone who really has nowhere near enough mobility for the activities that they want to do. So yeah, just in closing, guys, mobility has to be prioritized. Otherwise, this working out eventually is not going to be possible anymore. So yeah, that's all I have on that topic. I hope you found it helpful. A lot of information in there. As always, if you have questions, please give me a shout, and I'll see you in the next video.